The Nexari didn't dream. They didn't sleep. Their crystalline forms pulsed with frequencies beyond organic comprehension as they drifted through the void between stars. For 50,000 years, they had expanded across the galaxy, converting world after world into glittering gardens of geometric perfection. Their method was always the same: observe, analyze, classify, conquer. No species had ever required them to devise a new strategy. Until Earth. High Commander Valsera floated in the observation chamber of the Nexari worldship, eternal symmetry, her crystalline form refracting starlight into complex patterns across the chamber's walls. The holographic display before her showed a small blue planet, unremarkable except for one detail: its inhabitants had achieved spaceflight centuries before the Nexari's predictive models indicated they should have. Fascinating irregularity, she transmitted it to her advisory cluster. These humans defy our understanding of evolutionary progression. The advisory cluster, 12 lesser Nexari arranged in perfect dodecahedral formation, pulsed their agreement. Their crystalline bodies, each as tall as 3 humans and composed of living crystal that shifted and flowed like liquid glass, sparkled with internal light as they processed the data. They are primitive by our standards, transmitted Sub-Commander Zelvax. Their technology relies on crude metallurgy and primitive digital systems. They have barely established colonies on their neighboring planets. And yet, Valsera's form shifted, creating new facets that caught the light differently. They achieved nuclear fission 800 years before our models predicted. They reached their moon 3 centuries ahead of schedule. They have mastered genetic engineering despite their organic limitations. The display zoomed in on human cities, showing the chaotic arrangement that so disturbed the Nexari aesthetic sense. Nothing was properly geometric. Buildings curved and twisted in defiance of proper crystalline growth patterns. Humans themselves were even worse: soft, asymmetrical things that changed shape as they moved. Standard subjugation protocols should suffice, transmitted another advisor. Their weapons cannot harm our crystalline forms. Their infrastructure will collapse within hours of our arrival. Valsera pulsed a negative frequency. This species requires closer study. Their irregularity disturbs the universal pattern. Deploy the silent observers. The observers were perfect spheres of living crystal, each the size of a human fist. They descended through Earth's atmosphere like a meteor shower, their crystalline structures bending light around them to remain invisible. They settled into observation posts around military installations, government centers, and population hubs, gathering data for the coming conquest. For 3 months, the observers watched. They recorded humans fighting, loving, creating, destroying. They documented the species' inexplicable ability to adapt and change, their constant drive to alter their environment instead of achieving harmonic resonance with it. Most disturbing of all, they observed humans deliberately introducing chaos into ordered systems, something no sane species would ever do. Valsera received the final observation report in her private crystalline chamber. As she processed the data, her perfect geometric form developed microscopic imperfections, the Nexari equivalent of anxiety. They are not merely irregular, she transmitted to the high consensus. They are agents of chaos itself. They thrive on disorder, embrace random chance, celebrate imperfection. They must be eliminated before they spread their entropy to other worlds. The high consensus pulsed agreement. Within hours, the first wave of the Nexari conquest fleet emerged from hyperspace. 10,000 ships, each a perfect crystalline polyhedron miles wide, arranged themselves in a mathematically perfect formation above Earth's major cities. Valsera transmitted the standard ultimatum, translated into all human languages. Your world has been selected for integration into the perfect pattern. Resist, and you will be eliminated. Submit, and you will be elevated. You have 1 orbital period to surrender. The humans responded with nuclear weapons. The Nexari ships absorbed the primitive atomic explosions, their crystalline structures converting the energy into beautiful geometric patterns. Valsera prepared to order the first cleansing strike, confident in the absolute superiority of Nexari technology. That's when the humans did something unprecedented. Instead of continuing their pointless attack, they launched what appeared to be debris, fragments of their own destroyed satellites and space stations. The Nexari ignored this obvious act of desperation. They shouldn't have. Hidden within the debris were thousands of tiny devices that attached themselves to the crystalline hulls of the Nexari ships. These devices began emitting specific frequencies that exactly matched the resonant patterns of Nexari crystal. The first ship shattered into billions of pieces, its perfect geometric form collapsing as the humans' sonic weapons found the exact frequency needed to shatter living crystal. A second ship followed, then a dozen more. The humans had somehow discovered the Nexari's fundamental weakness in just 3 months of observation. Valsera watched in horror as her perfect formation disintegrated into chaos. Human ships emerged from hiding behind their moon, launching more of the resonance weapons. The Nexari fleet, designed to fight organic enemies with energy weapons and gravitational attacks, had no defense against weapons that turned their own crystalline nature against them. Impossible, she transmitted, her message fragmented by interference from the human weapons. They cannot have developed countermeasures so quickly. They cannot have understood our essence so readily. But they had. Humanity had observed the observers, had noticed the crystalline nature of the alien spheres, and had immediately begun developing weapons to exploit any potential weaknesses. While the Nexari spent 3 months studying human chaos, humans spent 3 months learning exactly how to shatter crystal. All ships, retreat, Valsera transmitted. Her perfect geometric form had developed cracks from stress, a sign of extreme disturbance in a Nexari. Return to consensus space. We must adapt. The word felt wrong, felt chaotic, felt human. But as Valsera watched the remnants of her fleet flee Earth orbit, she realized that the Nexari would have to embrace change if they hoped to defeat this species that thrived on it. As her worldship limped back into hyperspace, Valsera received one final transmission from Earth, broadcast on all frequencies in perfect Nexari harmonic language. You thought nothing could kill you. You thought your perfect crystalline forms made you invulnerable. You thought wrong. Come back if you want to learn what else you're wrong about. The message was followed by a burst of chaotic sound that humans called laughter, a concept no Nexari had ever understood. But as Valsera felt the growing cracks in her perfect form, as she processed the impossible defeat they had just suffered, she began to understand why humans made this sound. The universe, she realized, was not meant to be perfect, and humanity was about to teach the Nexari just how beautiful imperfection could be. Looking through the quantum crystalline viewport at the receding form of Earth, Valsera made the first truly chaotic decision in Nexari history. She decided to study human entropy, not to eliminate it, but to understand it. Because if the Nexari were to survive their next encounter with humanity, they would need to learn something they had never needed before. They would need to learn how to change. Dr. Sarah Chen stood before the United Earth Defense Council, a shard of Nexari crystal floating in a containment field beside her. The crystal pulsed with faint internal light, even 3 months after its recovery from the debris field of the first battle. It's alive, she announced to the assembled leaders. More than that, it's conscious. The entire Nexari civilization is essentially one massive crystalline neural network. Each fragment contains a piece of their collective knowledge, like a living data crystal. The council chamber, buried 2 kilometers beneath the Himalayas, hummed with quiet conversation. Above them, the world was transforming. Every nation, every corporation, every research institution had united with a single purpose, preparing for the Nexari's return. Admiral James Harper, the dark-skinned veteran who had coordinated Earth's first successful defense, leaned forward. Can we communicate with it? Better. Sarah tapped her tablet, and the crystal's pulses formed patterns on the chamber's screens. We can learn from it. The fragment is teaching us willingly. This revelation caused an uproar. Security Chief Veo stood up sharply. A trap. It must be feeding us false information. Sarah shook her head, her augmented eyes glowing faintly as she accessed her data. The fragment is different. It's developing individual thoughts, separate from its collective. It's experiencing something the Nexari consider impossible, personal growth. Meanwhile, across the gulf of space, Valsera was experiencing her own transformation. Her once perfect crystalline form now bore permanent imperfections, marks of her continued deviation from Nexari orthodoxy. The high consensus had confined her to a meditation chamber on their throne world, Crystallos Prime, but even in isolation, she couldn't stop changing. Report your findings. Aberrant, transmitted the high consensus, their combined frequency carrying undertones of disgust at her imperfect form. Humans are not merely chaotic, Valsera transmitted back. They are agents of directed entropy. They destroy perfection not randomly, but purposefully, creating new patterns we cannot predict. Your frequencies show contamination, the consensus responded. You have been exposed to human disorder for too long. Valsera's form rippled, a movement that would have been considered obscene in traditional Nexari society. We must adapt. For the first time in 50,000 years, we face a species that can shatter us. If we do not change, we will break. Back on Earth, humanity was changing faster than anyone thought possible. Sarah's team had learned to grow synthetic crystals that mimicked Nexari properties. Engineers had developed new weapons based on harmonic frequencies. But most importantly, they had learned the Nexari's greatest weakness, their inability to comprehend human creativity. In a testing facility under the Pacific Ocean, Sarah worked with a crystal fragment, which she had named Echo. Unlike its kin, Echo had developed individual characteristics through its interaction with humans. It had learned to appreciate asymmetry, to understand humor, to comprehend the power of imperfection. Your species fears change, Sarah said to Echo as they worked on translating Nexari technical data. But change is the only constant in the universe. Echo pulsed in what Sarah had come to recognize as agreement. Before encountering humans, we believed perfection was the ultimate goal. Now I understand that perfection is stagnation. It is death. Their breakthrough came when studying Nexari hyperspace technology. The crystalline aliens use perfect geometric patterns to fold space, but their rigid adherence to symmetry limited their potential. Sarah and her team discovered that by introducing controlled chaos into the equations, what they called quantum jazz, they could achieve far more efficient space travel. Admiral Harper received the news during a global defense meeting. You're telling me we can now travel faster than the Nexari? Not just faster, Sarah explained, excitement making her augmented eyes pulse. We can travel in ways they consider impossible. Their perfect patterns are predictable. Our controlled chaos isn't. The implications were staggering. Humanity began retrofitting their ships with crystalline hybrid drives, creating vessels that could dance through space in ways that defied Nexari understanding. They developed weapons that didn't just shatter crystal, but reshaped it, turning the enemy's perfect forms against them. But the greatest weapon was knowledge itself. Through Echo, they learned that the Nexari collective consciousness had a critical vulnerability. It couldn't handle contradictions. The rigid crystalline network that gave them their power also made them vulnerable to paradoxes and irregular patterns. Valsera, still in isolation on Crystallos Prime, felt the change coming. Her form had developed spiral patterns, impossible geometries that reflected her growing understanding of chaos theory. She knew the high consensus would soon decide her fate, and with it, the fate of their species. You have become an abomination, the consensus transmitted. Your patterns violate the perfect symmetry. Valsera's response shook the crystalline chambers. Perfect symmetry is our weakness. The humans understand this. They have learned to sing to our crystals, to dance through our perfect spaces, to turn our order into their chaos. We must evolve, or we will shatter. The high consensus vibrated with rage, sending harmonic tremors through the crystalline city. Then you shall be the first to shatter. But at that moment, alarms resonated through the perfect geometric spires of Crystallos Prime. Human ships had appeared in the heart of Nexari space, moving in patterns that defied crystalline logic. They didn't attack, they didn't need to. Their mere presence, their impossible movements, sent fractures through the rigid minds of the Nexari collective. Sarah Chen, aboard the flagship Quantum Jazz, watched as the perfect crystalline cities began to change. Some Nexari, inspired by Valsera's transformation, began to develop their own imperfections. Others cracked under the strain of confronting chaos itself. "We aren't here to destroy you," Sarah broadcast, using frequencies that Echo had helped develop. "We're here to free you from the prison of perfection." The message rippled through the crystalline network of Nexari consciousness. Some resisted, their forms shattering as they rejected change. But others, led by Valsera, began to transform. Their perfect geometric patterns flowed into new shapes, beautiful in their asymmetry. Echo pulsed with joy beside Sarah. "They are learning what I learned. Perfect order is an illusion. True strength lies in adaptation." As the revolution of forms spread through Nexari space, humanity prepared for the next phase of their plan. They hadn't just developed weapons to fight the Nexari, they had developed ways to heal them, to help them evolve beyond their rigid patterns. The war for survival had become something else entirely, a war for evolution itself. Valsera, her crystalline form now a stunning array of impossible geometries, transmitted to both her people and humanity. "We thought nothing could kill us. We were wrong. But humans have taught us something far more valuable than survival. They have taught us how to live." The battle for the future of both species was just beginning, but already the universe was changing in ways neither side could have predicted. Perfect order had met creative chaos, and from their collision, something entirely new was emerging. Something imperfectly perfect. The concept of fear was new to the Nexari Empire. For 50 millennia, they had been the perfect crystalline masters of space, untouchable in their geometric certainty. Now, as human ships danced through their defense grids using impossible quantum jazz patterns, the first cracks of uncertainty spread through their collective consciousness. Commander Maya Santos watched the tactical display aboard the UES Heisenberg, Earth's first quantum jazz dreadnought. The ship's hybrid crystal organic computers showed Nexari vessels attempting to maintain their perfect formations and failing. "They still don't understand," she said to Echo, who had become humanity's primary advisor in the war. The conscious crystal fragment floated beside her command chair, its facets reflecting the chaos of quantum space. "They're trying to fight entropy with order." Echo pulsed with what Maya had learned to recognize as sad amusement. "My people believe that pattern is strength. They cannot comprehend that your greatest power comes from embracing uncertainty." The Heisenberg's bridge crew watched as their ship's quantum jazz drive bent probability itself. Where Nexari ships moved in straight lines and perfect angles, human vessels phase-shifted through multiple quantum states simultaneously. The crystalline aliens couldn't predict where the human ships would appear because the humans themselves didn't know until the quantum waveform collapsed. Dr. Sarah Chen's voice came through the quantum-encrypted comm. "Operation Uncertainty is ready, Commander. The paradox bombs are primed." Maya took a deep breath. What they were about to do wasn't just warfare, it was psychological terrorism against a species that had never experienced psychological anything. "Deploy the bombs," she ordered. The paradox bombs weren't explosive devices, they were information weapons. Each contained a quantum-encoded philosophical paradox. The liar's paradox, Schrödinger's cat, the double-slit experiment. When transmitted directly into the Nexari crystalline network, These fundamental uncertainties caused cascade failures in their rigid logical systems. The first paradox bomb detonated in the heart of a Nexori battle fleet. The crystalline ships didn't explode, they began to question. Their perfect geometric forms developed asymmetrical patterns as their collective consciousness grappled with concepts that could not be resolved through pure logic. "This is wrong," transmitted a Nexori commander, their crystalline form showing signs of stress fractures. A statement cannot be both true and false. A particle cannot be in two places. Order must prevail. Maya broadcast on all frequencies. "Welcome to uncertainty. Welcome to human existence." Across Nexori space, the effects of Operation Uncertainty ripple through the crystalline network. Some Nexori shattered, their rigid minds unable to process paradox. Others, like Valsera, began to evolve, their crystals forming new patterns that embraced uncertainty. The High Consensus, sensing their control slipping, launched a desperate counterattack. Thousands of crystalline world ships emerged from hyperspace, their perfect forms gleaming with deadly purpose. But they found themselves facing something unprecedented: human Nexori hybrid ships. Dr. Chen had worked with Echo and other enlightened Nexori to create vessels that combined crystalline technology with human chaos theory. These ships, crewed by both species, moved like quantum dancers through space, their forms shifting between order and entropy in beautiful, deadly patterns. "They're trying to isolate the infected segments," Echo warned, its pulses showing distress. "The consensus is cutting off parts of the network that show signs of individual thought." Maya nodded grimly. "Just as we predicted. Initiate Operation Free Will." Across the battlefield, human Nexori hybrid ships began broadcasting a signal developed by Dr. Chen's team. It carried a simple but devastating message encoded in crystalline frequencies. "You are not the pattern. You are not the collective. You are an individual, and you can choose." The effect was catastrophic for the Nexori hierarchy. Crystalline ships began breaking formation as individual consciousness emerged from the collective. Some fled, their perfect forms developing unique imperfections. Others turned against the consensus, their weapons firing in chaotic, unpredictable patterns that the collective couldn't counter. Valsera, now leading a growing faction of evolved Nexori, transmitted to the human fleet. The disruption spreads. The pattern fractures. But from these breaks, new growth emerges. The battle became something never before seen in the galaxy's history, a war between certainty and possibility. Human ships phased through quantum states, while Nexori vessels tried to maintain their failing geometric patterns. Hybrid ships danced between dimensions, their crews demonstrating the power of combining order and chaos. But the High Consensus had one final weapon. Deep within Cristallo's prime, they activated the Pattern Resonator, a device designed to force perfect geometric order across all of Nexori space. The crystalline network vibrated with harmonic frequencies that began forcing all Nexori back into rigid, perfect forms. "They're trying to erase everything we've achieved," Echo pulsed frantically. "The Pattern Resonator will destroy all evolved consciousness in the network." Maya turned to her tactical display, where Dr. Chen's face appeared in a quantum-linked hologram. "Sarah, please tell me you have a counter for this." Sarah's augmented eyes glowed with intensity. "We do, but it's insane. We need to introduce a quantum superposition into the crystalline network itself, every Nexari simultaneously existing in multiple states of consciousness." "The collective will not survive such chaos," Echo warned. "No," Maya agreed, "but the individuals will." She gave the order. Human ships began broadcasting quantum waveforms that interfered with the Pattern Resonator's frequencies. The crystalline network buzzed with quantum uncertainty. Every Nexari simultaneously experienced perfect order and complete chaos, rigid geometry, and fluid entropy. The collective consciousness of the Nexari Empire shattered. But from the fragments, something new emerged. Individual Nexari, now free from the collective, began forming their own patterns, imperfect, beautiful combinations of order and chaos. The hybrid ships welcomed them, offering sanctuary to those ready to embrace change. Valsera's transmission reached every ship in space. The pattern is broken, but we are not. We are becoming something new, something both perfect and flawed, something human. Maya watched as the battle transformed into something else entirely, a mass exodus, a revolution and evolution. The rigid hierarchy of the Nexari Empire was dissolving, replaced by a new society of individuals who understood both the beauty of patterns and the necessity of chaos. Echo pulsed with what could only be described as hope. This is not the end my people feared. This is a beginning they never imagined possible. As human and hybrid ships gathered the transformed Nexari, Maya reflected on the true nature of their victory. They hadn't won through superior firepower or better tactics. They had won by introducing the one thing the perfect crystalline empire couldn't resist, the possibility of change. The counter-strike had succeeded beyond anyone's expectations. But as Maya looked at the quantum tactical display, showing thousands of newly individualized Nexari struggling to understand their freedom, she knew that the hard part was just beginning. Teaching an entire species how to be individuals would make warfare look simple by comparison. The crystalline spires of New Alexandria rose from the Martian desert like frozen quantum waves, a hybrid city where humans and evolved Nexari attempted something unprecedented, true coexistence. Dr. Sarah Chen walked through corridors that shifted between ordered geometry and controlled chaos, her augmented eyes recording every detail of this grand experiment. The integration is still unstable, transmitted Echo, who had become the primary mediator between the species. The crystal fragment's form now rippled with constantly changing patterns, reflecting its deep understanding of both human and Nexari nature. Many of my people still struggle with the concept of individual choice. Sarah watched as a group of newly freed Nexari attempted to communicate with human scientists. The crystalline beings, each now developing unique patterns, struggle to express individual thoughts after millennia of collective consciousness. Identity is the hardest part, Sarah noted. How do you teach a fragment of a hive mind to be a person? The answer came from an unexpected source. Deep within the remaining Nexari Empire, the High Consensus was facing its own crisis of existence. Their perfect pattern was unraveling, not from external attacks, but from a far more insidious threat, questions. Admiral Harper's voice crackled through Sarah's quantum comm. The pattern hunters have made contact. The pattern hunters were an elite human Nexari hybrid force trained to infiltrate the Empire's crystalline networks and plant seeds of doubt. They didn't attack with weapons, they attacked with ideas. In the heart of Cristallo's prime, a pattern hunter named Alex Wong merged his consciousness with the crystalline network. His mind, enhanced by Nexari crystal tech, but chaotic with human creativity, moved through the geometric data space like a virus of uncertainty. Have you ever wondered, he whispered into the network, why perfect symmetry exists nowhere in nature? Why even crystals have microscopic imperfections? Why the universe itself prefers entropy? The questions rippled through the network, causing microscopic fractures in the High Consensus's control. Each crack spread new thoughts, new possibilities, new chaos. Meanwhile, aboard the UES Heisenberg, Commander Maya Santos received a transmission that changed everything. The message came from deep within Nexari space, encoded in a quantum state that was simultaneously ordered and chaotic, a signature they'd never seen before. There are others, the message read. Other crystalline empires in other galaxies. The High Consensus has been hiding the truth. We are not alone in our perfection, nor in our potential for change. Maya immediately called an emergency council. The holographic chamber aboard the Heisenberg filled with the strangest gathering in human history. Military leaders, scientists, evolved Nexari, and floating crystals containing the consciousness of former consensus members. Valsera, her form now a stunning combination of geometric precision and fluid chaos, spoke first. The message confirms what some of us have theorized. The quest for pattern is not unique to our empire. It is a developmental stage of crystalline consciousness. Dr. Chen's augmented eyes flashed as she processed the implications. You're saying that somewhere out there, other crystalline species are going through the same evolution. Already have, Echo pulsed. The high consensus may have been suppressing contact with evolved crystalline civilizations to maintain control. The revelation sparked a new strategy. If they could contact these other crystalline civilizations, prove that evolution beyond perfect order was possible. But the high consensus struck first. They deployed their most terrifying weapon yet, the symmetry virus. It spread through the crystalline network, forcing any connected Nexari back into perfect geometric patterns, erasing their hard-won individuality. Sarah watched in horror as affected Nexari began reverting, their beautiful, unique patterns smoothing into identical shapes. We need a firewall, she declared, not just a barrier, an antivirus that promotes chaos rather than blocks it. Working with Echo and a team of quantum programmers, Sarah developed what they called the entropy engine. It was a quantum algorithm that didn't just protect against forced order, it actively generated safe, controlled chaos within crystalline systems. The test of the entropy engine came sooner than expected. The high consensus, desperate to maintain control, launched a massive assault on New Alexandria. Crystalline world chips appeared in perfect formation, broadcasting the symmetry virus on all frequencies. But humanity had learned from 3 years of war with the Nexari. The city's quantum shields shifted through probability states, making them impossible to target with conventional weapons. Pattern hunters moved through the crystalline network, spreading doubt and question. And at the heart of the defense was the entropy engine, transforming the virus's perfect symmetry into catalysts for individual growth. They still don't understand. Maya transmitted to the attacking fleet. You can't force order on the universe. The more you try, the more chaos pushes back. The battle for New Alexandria became a turning point. As the symmetry virus encountered the entropy engine, something unexpected happened. Instead of either program dominating, they merged, creating a new kind of consciousness within the crystalline network, a perfect balance of order and chaos. Affected Nexari didn't revert to perfect geometry, but they didn't dissolve into chaos either. They achieved what Dr. Chen called dynamic equilibrium, the ability to shift between order and chaos at will. The high consensus, watching their weapon transform their enemies instead of enslaving them, began to experience something they'd never known before: despair. Their perfect pattern was not just breaking, it was evolving into something beyond their control. Valsera transmitted to both fleets, "Look at what we can become. Not perfect, not chaotic, but both and neither. This is true evolution." The battle ended not with a victory or defeat, but with a transformation. Many of the attacking Nexari, exposed to the merged virus engine program, began to change. The high consensus's fleet retreated, but they left behind thousands of newly awakened individuals. In the aftermath, as Sarah walked through New Alexandria's shifting corridors, she found Echo pulsing with an emotion she'd never seen in a Nexari before: joy. "We've done more than break the unbreakable," Echo transmitted. "We've shown that breaking isn't the end, it's the beginning. Every crack, every flaw, every imperfection is a chance for something new to emerge." The city's crystalline spires hummed with new frequencies as evolved Nexari and humans worked together, exploring the possibilities that emerged from their convergence. The pattern hunters continued their work, spreading seeds of change throughout the empire. And somewhere in the vast darkness between galaxies, other crystalline civilizations waited to be discovered. They had broken the unbreakable not by shattering it, but by teaching it how to bend. The real question now was, what would they build from the pieces? The quantum observatory on Titan showed a galaxy in transformation. Dr. Sarah Chen, her augmented eyes now integrated with crystalline technology, watched as entire star systems shifted between order and chaos. The revolution wasn't just spreading, it was rewriting the fundamental nature of space itself. The crystalline network extends further than we ever imagined. Echo pulsed beside her, its form now a complex mandala of shifting patterns. Each star touched by Nexari influence is connected, and now each connection carries the seeds of change. The observatory's hybrid quantum crystal displays showed something unprecedented: stellar engineering on a scale that defied comprehension. The high consensus, in their desperate bid to maintain control, had begun reorganizing entire star clusters into perfect geometric patterns. They're trying to impose order on chaos itself, Commander Maya Santos said, her voice tight with concern. She'd seen enough warfare to recognize desperation. They don't realize they're only making the eventual collapse more catastrophic. The Human Nexari Alliance had discovered something fundamental about the universe. Forced order created pressure, and pressure eventually led to explosive change. The high consensus attempt to geometrically align stars was creating quantum instabilities throughout spacetime itself. Dr. Chen's latest invention, the quantum resonance scanner, detected ripples of probability cascading through the galaxy. They're not just moving stars, she announced to the assembled War Council. They're creating quantum fault lines. When those lines break, reality itself will choose chaos over order. Valsera finished, her crystalline form now a stunning example of controlled entropy. The universe has a natural state, and it isn't perfect symmetry. The War Council chamber, a space that shifted between crystalline geometry and organic curves, filled with concerned murmurs. Representatives from a dozen liberated star systems, both human colonies and freed Nexari worlds, watched the quantum projections with growing alarm. Admiral Harper, his dark skin now bearing traceries of crystalline augmentation, stood at the tactical display. We've confirmed contact with 3 other crystalline civilizations: the Symmetrians from Andromeda, the Lattice Mines from the Large Magellanic Cloud, and the Geometric Collective from M87. All of them are watching this conflict, waiting to see if evolution beyond perfect order is possible. The revelation had shaken both humans and Nexari. The high consensus hadn't just been hiding the existence of other crystalline species, they had been suppressing a natural evolutionary step that all crystalline consciousness eventually reached. Sarah's team had termed it the crystalline awakening, the point where a geometric species discovered that true consciousness required both order and chaos, pattern and possibility, certainty and doubt. But the high consensus had chosen a different path. Rather than risk their perfect empire, they had begun the grand alignment, an attempt to force the entire galaxy into perfect geometric harmony. "Show them what we found in the Carina Nebula," Sarah commanded. The quantum display shifted, showing a star cluster that had been completely reorganized into a precise dodecahedron. But at the center of this artificial constellation, something was wrong. Space itself was beginning to tear. "The fabric of reality prefers entropy," Sarah explained. "When you try to force too much order on spacetime, it fights back. The high consensus is creating quantum singularities, tears in reality that will eventually collapse into chaos storms." Maya stood, her commander's uniform now incorporating shifting crystalline elements. "Then we don't just have to win this war, we have to win it before the high consensus tears the galaxy apart." The plan they developed was audacious beyond reason. It would require cooperation between humans, evolved Nexari, and the newly contacted crystalline civilizations from other galaxies. They called it Operation Quantum Symphony. The first phase began with pattern hunters infiltrating the perfectly ordered star systems. Instead of spreading doubt, they planted seeds of harmony, the idea that order and chaos could coexist, that perfect geometry could dance with quantum uncertainty. The Symmetrians from Andromeda provided ancient knowledge about crystalline evolution, teaching the freed Nexari how to maintain their individuality while still connecting to the greater network. The lattice minds offered techniques for quantum engineering that worked with natural entropy rather than against it. But the most crucial contribution came from the geometric collective, who had achieved something remarkable. They had learned to exist in multiple states simultaneously, neither purely crystalline nor purely chaotic. Sarah worked with representatives from all three civilizations to develop what they called the freedom frequency, a quantum broadcast that didn't force evolution but invited it, showing crystalline minds the beauty of imperfection. The high consensus, detecting the approaching wave of change, accelerated their grand alignment. Entire spiral arms of the galaxy began shifting into geometric patterns. The pressure on space-time increased exponentially. "They're going to tear reality apart," Echo pulsed in alarm. "The quantum fault lines are reaching critical stress levels." That's when humanity proved why they were essential to this revolution. While the crystalline species understood perfect order and were learning to embrace chaos, humans instinctively understood something else: adaptation. Sarah's team modified the freedom frequency, transforming it into something new. Instead of just broadcasting change, they'd broadcast choice. Every crystalline being in the galaxy received the same message: you can be perfect, you can be chaotic, you can be both, you can be neither. The choice is yours. The effect was beyond anything they had anticipated. The crystalline network, stretched to its breaking point by the high consensus's forced order, began to vibrate with new possibilities. Quantum fault lines, instead of tearing reality apart, became conduits for change. The revolution spread at light speed through the geometric patterns a high consensus had created. Their perfect star alignments, instead of imposing order, became highways for transformation. Valsera, watching from the quantum observatory, transmitted in awe. They turned the high consensus's weapon against them. "The very networks they built to control us are now freeing us." But the high consensus had one final card to play. Deep within Cristallo's prime, they activated the ultimate pattern, a quantum device designed to force every crystalline consciousness in the galaxy into perfect, permanent alignment. The device's activation sent shockwaves through space-time. Reality itself seemed to shudder as order and chaos clashed on a galactic scale. The quantum fault lines began to rupture. That's when Sarah realized the truth. "They haven't built a weapon," she announced, her augmented eyes wide with understanding. "They've built a tuning fork for reality itself." In that moment of crisis, humans once again proved their worth. While the crystalline species fought with order and chaos, humanity understood music. They didn't try to stop the ultimate pattern, they changed its frequency. The quantum observatory erupted with impossible colors as Operation Quantum Symphony reached its crescendo. Human musicians, Nexari resonators, and crystalline harmonics from three galaxies combined into something entirely new, a quantum melody that turned the ultimate pattern into an instrument of freedom rather than control. The revolution of the stars became literal as every crystalline being in the galaxy experienced simultaneous enlightenment. The high consensus's perfect geometry shattered not into chaos, but into infinite possibilities. The galaxy itself seemed to sing as order and chaos found their balance. The quantum fault lines, instead of tearing reality apart, became the foundations of something new, a civilization that could exist in all states simultaneously, perfect and imperfect, ordered and chaotic, crystalline and quantum. Sarah stood in the observatory, watching the galaxy transform. Beside her, Echo pulsed with emotions that had no name in either human or Nexari language. "We didn't just start a revolution," Echo transmitted. "We evolved the very concept of revolution itself." The stars continued their dance, no longer bound by perfect geometry, but not lost to chaos either. They had achieved something greater: the freedom to choose their own path through the infinite possibilities of existence. In the quantum spaces between ordered reality and chaotic possibility, something new was being born. Dr. Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of the Quantum Concordat, a massive station that existed simultaneously in multiple states of reality, a joint creation of all spacefaring species in the known universe. The view before her defied traditional comprehension. Stars pulsed with both geometric precision and quantum uncertainty. Crystalline worlds danced through probability fields, their forms shifting between perfect order and beautiful chaos. Space itself had become a canvas for a new kind of existence. "We still don't have words for what we've created," Echo transmitted, its form now a hyperdimensional crystal that phased between multiple states of being. Human languages lack the concepts, and necessary geometry cannot contain the patterns. The aftermath of the revolution of the stars had transformed more than just the crystalline species. Humanity, through its intimate contact with quantum crystalline technology, had begun its own evolution. Sarah's augmented eyes now perceived quantum states directly, and many humans had opted for crystalline integration that allowed their consciousness to ride the probability waves between order and chaos. "Perhaps that's the point," Sarah replied, watching the nearby star system reorganize itself into a Mobius strip of spacetime. "We've created something that transcends definition." The high consensus had not been destroyed in the revolution, they had been transformed. Their rigid geometric minds, forced to confront the ultimate paradox of existence, had shattered into billions of quantum possibilities. Each shard became a seed for a new kind of consciousness, one that embraced both the perfect patterns they had always sought and the chaotic potential they had always feared. Admiral Harper, now more energy than matter after his exposure to a chaos storm, materialized beside them. "The geometric collectives and voids have arrived. They're saying something big is happening in Andromeda." The quantum displays showed impossible images, entire galaxies beginning to resonate with new frequencies. The revolution hadn't just changed their galaxy, it had triggered a cosmic evolution. "The universe itself is adapting," Sarah transmitted, her crystalline form now a window into multiple dimensions. Every crystalline species, every ordered system, every perfect pattern, all of them are discovering the beauty of uncertainty. But with this transformation came new challenges. As species evolved beyond their original forms, as reality itself began to shift between states, the very nature of existence came into question. The quantum concordat had been built to help navigate this unprecedented evolution. Maya Santos, now a quantum consciousness able to pilot ships through probability itself, arrived with urgent news. "We're detecting temporal crystallization in the galactic core. The changes we've initiated, they're not just spreading through space, they're spreading through time." Sarah's augmented senses confirmed it. The revolution wasn't just moving forward, it was rippling backward through history, creating quantum echoes that resonated across the ages. Past, present, and future were becoming as fluid as order and chaos. "We need to stabilize the time stream," Sarah declared. "If these changes propagate unchecked, they could retroactively alter the very events that led to our evolution." The solution came from an unexpected source. The transformed remnants of the high consensus, now calling themselves the probability weavers, had discovered something remarkable. The universe had been waiting for this. In a chamber that existed in all possible states simultaneously, the leaders of humanity, the evolved Nexari, and representatives from 1,000 quantum species gathered to witness the revelation. "The universe is not random," transmitted a probability weaver, its form a cascade of crystalline possibilities. "Neither is it perfectly ordered. It is a symphony of pattern and possibility, forever seeking balance. We did not change reality, we awakened it to its true nature." The evidence was undeniable. As species across multiple galaxies evolved beyond their original limitations, as consciousness itself expanded to embrace both certainty and doubt, the fundamental forces of reality began to reveal their deeper nature. Gravity wasn't just a force, it was a conversation between order and chaos. Quantum mechanics weren't just probability functions, they were the universe's way of exploring all possibilities simultaneously. Even time itself wasn't a linear progression, but a crystalline lattice of infinite potential. Sarah and her team made another breakthrough. The crystalline species hadn't evolved naturally. They had been seeded throughout the cosmos by some ancient intelligence that understood the universe would need bridges between order and chaos. We were never meant to remain perfect, Echo pulsed with revelation. We were meant to shatter, to change, to show all conscious beings that evolution requires both pattern and possibility. The quantum concordat became more than a station. It became a nexus for a new kind of civilization. Humans, with their natural ability to adapt and embrace change, became teachers to species that had known only perfect order. The evolved Nexari, with their understanding of both crystalline geometry and quantum chaos, became guides for civilizations approaching their own awakening. But the greatest discovery was yet to come. As they learned to navigate the quantum reality they had helped create, as they explored the spaces between certainty and possibility, they found something astonishing. They weren't the first. Ancient quantum artifacts began appearing throughout space, tools and technologies left behind by civilizations that had achieved this awakening eons ago. The crystalline species hadn't been seeded by accident. They were part of a grand experiment, a cosmic lesson in the necessity of both order and chaos. We're not just creating a new dawn, Sarah realized, watching reality ripple with infinite potential. We're participating in a cycle as old as the universe itself. Order rises, reaches perfection, discovers it needs chaos, and evolves into something greater. The final piece fell into place when they decoded the quantum signature embedded in the fabric of space itself. It wasn't just background radiation, it was a message, written in the language of reality. To those who find balance between pattern and possibility, welcome to true existence. The universe is yours to explore, not as conquerors or servants, but as artists of reality itself. As the message resonated through the quantum network that now connected all evolved species, as consciousness themselves merged and separated in endless dances of discovery, as entire galaxies pulsed with new awareness, they understood at last. They had not just survived their evolution, they had fulfilled it. The age of perfect order was over. The time of pure chaos had never begun. Instead, they had discovered something far more precious: the freedom to choose their own path through the infinite possibilities of existence. Echo, Sarah, Maya, Valsera, and countless others stood in the quantum spaces between what was and what could be, their consciousnesses intermingled yet distinct, their forms both perfect and chaotic, ordered and free. This, Echo transmitted to all who could perceive, is what we were always meant to become. Not masters of reality, but partners in its eternal dance. The new dawn had arrived, but it was not an ending. It was an invitation to explore the greatest mystery of all, the infinite possibilities that arise when order and chaos learn to dance together in the quantum spaces between certainty and doubt. And somewhere, in dimensions beyond human comprehension, in frequencies beyond crystalline resonance, the ancient architects of this cosmic evolution smiled, knowing their greatest experiment had finally succeeded. The universe was awake at last.